Nobody expected the humans to be quiet. Most species made grand entrances when they first contacted the Galactic Council. The crystal beings sang mathematical equations that made reality shimmer. The gas clouds communicated through electromagnetic, storms that could be seen from 3 star systems away. The warrior clans announced themselves with ritual combat dances that lasted for days, but the humans just sent a simple message. "Hello, we would like to talk." The message arrived at Galactic Council headquarters on a Tuesday morning, delivered by a small probe that looked like it had been built in someone's garage. The probe carried basic information about humanity. Bipedal mammals from a planet called Earth, recently developed faster-than-light travel, interested in peaceful contact. Council Secretary Val examined the data with growing amusement. These creatures still used chemical rockets for local transport. Their weapons were described as kinetic projectiles accelerated by chemical explosives. Their fastest ships barely managed 1/10 light speed. By galactic standards, they were practically Stone Age primitives. "Another backwater species wanting to join the big leagues," Val muttered, filing the application under low priority review. That was 3 months ago. Now, watching the human ship approach the council station, Val wondered if perhaps they should have paid more attention. The ship was ugly. There was no other word for it. Where most galactic vessels curved and flowed like works of art, the human ship looked like someone had welded a bunch of metal tubes together and called it finished. It was long and narrow, with most of its bulk concentrated in what appeared to be a massive central spine. What kind of design philosophy produces something that hideous? Wondered Counselor Rex, his scaled features twisted in disgust. Rex represented the Talon Empire, a proud warrior species that valued both function and beauty in their war machines. "Primitive engineering," replied Dr. Mila, her crystalline form flickering with superior amusement. The Helix were master mathematicians who could calculate the stress patterns in a starship hull just by looking at it. Look at those structural supports. They're building for stresses that shouldn't exist in normal spaceflight. The human ship docked with all the grace of a falling brick. The airlock systems took forever to synchronize because human technology was apparently too primitive to interface properly with galactic standard equipment. When the delegation finally emerged, they looked exactly as underwhelming as their ship. 3 humans walked into the council chambers, led by a middle-aged man in a simple blue uniform. His name tag read Tom Bradley, in letters so plain they hurt to look at. Behind him came 2 others, a younger woman with short dark hair and an older man whose gray beard suggested he was some kind of technical expert. The chambers fell silent as the humans took their designated positions in the center of the vast amphitheater. Around them, representatives from 47 different species observed with varying degrees of curiosity and condescension. "Species designation human," announced Council Speaker Lynn, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic. "Systems. Origin Sol system, 3rd planet from local star. Population approximately 8 billion. Technology level." She paused, consulting her data tablet. "Chemical propulsion, basic fusion power, primitive kinetic weapons." Laughter rippled through the assembly. The sound came in many forms: the musical chimes of the crystal beings, the harmonic vibrations of the gas entities, the subsonic rumbles of the heavy gravity species. But the meaning was universal: amusement at the primitives who thought they belonged among the stars. Tom Bradley waited patiently for the laughter to die down. When it did, he spoke in clear, unaccented galactic standard. "Thank you for seeing us, Council Speaker. We know we're new to all this, but we're eager to learn and contribute what we can." Contribute? The question came from General Crix of the Talon Empire. "What exactly could a species with chemical rockets possibly offer us? Your entire military operates on the principle of throwing metal at your enemies." More laughter. The humans didn't seem bothered by it. "We found that throwing metal can be quite effective, General," Tom replied mildly. It's all about how fast you throw it. This brought fresh waves of amusement from the audience. Admiral Czar of the Nexus Coalition, his cybernetic implants gleaming, leaned forward with interest. Your application mentions magnetic acceleration of projectiles. Railgun technology, I believe you call it. Theoretically interesting, but hardly practical for serious military applications. Oh, we've found it quite practical, Tom said. In fact, our ship out there is equipped with a demonstration model. Would the Council be interested in seeing how it works? The question caused a stir among the delegates. It wasn't unusual for new species to show off their technology, but usually they demonstrated advanced energy weapons, reality-bending devices, or exotic matter manipulators. Nobody had ever requested to demonstrate throwing metal. A demonstration could be educational, Council Speaker Lin said carefully. But it must be conducted at a safe distance from the station. Of course, safety first. Tom activated a small communication device. This is Bradley to Prometheus. Prepare for live. Fire demonstration. Target the old freighter hulk at grid reference 77 Alpha. Copy that, sir, came the reply. Target is 11,000 kilometers out. Shall we use a standard demonstration round? Standard will be fine. As the human ship maneuvered into position, delegates throughout the chamber activated viewing screens and sensor arrays. The target was an ancient cargo vessel that had been serving as target practice for various species weapons tests for decades. Its hull was scarred by energy weapons, particle beams, and exotic matter disruptors, but it remained stubbornly intact. This should be amusing, General Crix muttered to his aide. Watch the primitives bounce metal off hardened battle armor. The Prometheus took nearly 10 minutes to line up its shot. During this time, the human ship's energy signature began to change. What had been a quiet, almost undetectable power output suddenly spiked to levels that made several delegates look up from their casual conversations. Interesting, Admiral Czar observed. They're charging some kind of capacitor system, but the power requirements seem excessive for a simple kinetic weapon. Dr. Mila's crystalline form began to flicker more rapidly as she ran calculations. The magnetic field they're generating is enormous. What could they possibly need that much energy for? They got their answer 3 seconds later. The flash was visible even through the filtered viewing screens. For exactly 0.003 seconds, the Prometheus became the brightest object in local space as her magnetic coils discharged their full power load. The electromagnetic pulse was so intense that half the sensor systems in the chamber temporarily overloaded. But it was what happened to the target that made the entire council chamber fall silent. The tungsten rod hit the derelict freighter at 36,000 kilometers per second. At that velocity, the difference between matter and energy became purely academic. The projectile didn't punch through the hull or crack the armor plating. It simply erased the entire forward section of the ship, transforming metal and structure into expanding plasma through pure kinetic energy. The shock wave that followed vaporized what remained of the kilometer-long vessel, creating a brief artificial star that outshone the local sun for nearly a full minute. In the aftermath, as the expanding cloud of superheated gas slowly cooled and dispersed, the council chambers remained absolutely quiet. Representatives who had been casually chatting moments before now stared at their screens in shocked silence. It was Dr. Mila who finally found her voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. The energy release was equivalent to a 40-megaton antimatter warhead, but there was no antimatter signature, no exotic matter trace, no dimensional distortion. It was just kinetic energy. Tom Bradley's voice cut through the stunned silence, with the same mild tone he had used throughout the meeting. As I said, it's all about how fast you throw it. The Prometheus can manage one shot every 45 minutes while maintaining full life support and navigation. Our dedicated military vessels do somewhat better. Military vessels. The words came from Admiral Czar, barely audible. Oh yes, the Prometheus is just our diplomatic ship. Our actual warships are designed around heavier railgun systems. Tom paused thoughtfully. The Thunderstrike, our newest heavy cruiser, can accelerate projectiles to 15% of light speed. We're quite proud of her. The silence stretched on as the implications sank in. These weren't experimental weapons or prototype systems. The humans had apparently built their entire space fleet around the concept of throwing metal fast enough to convert it into pure energy on impact. Council Speaker Lin finally managed to form words. How long have you had this technology? Practical railgun systems? About 30 years now. Though we've been working on magnetic acceleration for nearly a century, it's proven quite useful for mining operations and orbital construction projects. 30 years. The number hung in the chamber like a physical weight. While the galaxy had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers, they had been quietly perfecting weapons that could vaporize battleships with chunks of metal and electricity. Of course, Tom continued conversationally, we primarily use the technology for peaceful purposes: asteroid mining, cargo transport, debris clearing. Very efficient for moving large amounts of material around the solar system. The casual mention of using civilization-ending weapons for routine cargo hauling somehow made everything worse. These humans didn't just have relativistic kinetic weapons, they used them for everyday tasks like delivering packages. General Crix found his voice, though it sounded strained. Your application will require extensive review. Naturally, Tom agreed. We understand this is all new to you. Take all the time you need. We'll be happy to answer any questions about our technology or capabilities. As the human delegation was escorted to their temporary quarters, urgent messages began racing across the galaxy at faster-than-light speeds. The content was always the same. The humans were not what they appeared to be. In the quiet of the council chambers, after the delegates had departed, Council Speaker Lin stared at the slowly dispersing debris cloud that had once been a ship. The target had withstood weapons tests from dozens of advanced species over the course of centuries. The humans had erased it in 3 seconds with what they casually described as their diplomatic vessel's standard armament. Lin activated her secure communication system and began composing an emergency message to the Galactic Security Council. The subject line read simply, "Priority alert. Human contact requires immediate reassessment." Outside the station, the Prometheus hung in space like a sleeping predator. Her railgun systems powered down but ready. Inside her hull, the human crew went about their routine duties with the calm professionalism of people who had spent decades learning to throw rocks at significant fractions of the speed of light. They had no idea that their simple demonstration had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The emergency beacon reached Admiral Zar's flagship just as he was finishing his morning meal. The message was brief and encrypted with the highest security protocols. "Return to base immediately. Human situation requires urgent reassessment." Zar set down his nutrition cube and stared at the message display. 3 days had passed since the human demonstration at the council station. 3 days for the galaxy's intelligence networks to process what they had witnessed. Apparently, the processing was complete, and the results were not reassuring. The journey back to Nexus Prime took 18 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity. During the trip, Zar's cybernetic implants worked constantly, analyzing and reanalyzing the sensor data from the human railgun test. No matter how he adjusted the calculations, the numbers remained the same. Impossible. The Coalition High Command was already assembled when Zar arrived at headquarters. 23 admirals, 4 strategic AIs, and a dozen species representatives sat around the circular table in the secure briefing chamber. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. "Admiral Zar," greeted High Admiral Kane, her augmented features grim. "Thank you for returning so quickly. We need to discuss what you witnessed at the council station. The human weapon demonstration was successful beyond their claims, Zar reported, taking his designated seat. The kinetic energy release was equivalent to a Class 7 antimatter warhead, achieved through pure magnetic acceleration. That's what our initial analysis suggested, Kane agreed. But we've been digging deeper into the implications. Strategic AI Gamma, please present your findings. The artificial intelligence's holographic avatar materialized above the conference table. Its form was deliberately abstract, a shifting pattern of geometric shapes that somehow conveyed both intelligence and unease. Admiral Zar's sensor data has been thoroughly analyzed, Gamma began, its synthetic voice unusually hesitant. The human projectile achieved 12% of light speed through magnetic acceleration alone. This represents a fundamental breakthrough in practical physics. Applications. Breakthrough is one word for it, muttered Commander Rex from his position near the viewing screens. Another word would be nightmare. Gamma's avatar shifted colors slightly. The implications extend far beyond the demonstrated weapon system. Analysis of the human ship's power signature suggests their entire vessel was designed around the railgun system. This is not experimental technology. It is their standard engineering approach. Explain, Kane ordered. Human spacecraft architecture appears to prioritize structural integrity and power generation above all other considerations. Their ships are essentially flying weapons platforms with life support systems attached. This suggests their entire space program was developed with warfare as a primary consideration. The room fell silent as delegates processed this information. Most galactic species developed space travel for exploration, trade, or colonization. The idea of a species building their entire space infrastructure around weapons systems was deeply unsettling. Dr. Mila materialized in the chamber through quantum projection, her crystalline form flickering with mathematical precision. I've been analyzing human technological development patterns based on available data. The results are concerning. Her form pulsed as she accessed computational networks across the galaxy. Human development of railgun technology began approximately 80 years ago, according to their own historical records. They achieved practical applications 30 years ago. But here's what troubles me. They developed these weapons while confined to their home system. Meaning? Prompted Kane. Meaning they built civilization-ending weapons before they knew there were civilizations to end. This suggests either remarkable foresight or... She paused, her crystalline structure dimming slightly. Or a species with an unusually aggressive approach to technological development. Admiral Zar's implants flickered as he processed additional data streams. There's more. Our long-range sensors have been conducting detailed scans of Sol systems since the demonstration. What we've found is unprecedented. The main display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of human space. Where most stellar systems showed planets, asteroids, and empty space, Sol system was filled with an intricate network of installations, platforms, and artificial structures. They've industrialized their entire system, Zar continued. Over 2,000 artificial installations, ranging from mining platforms to manufacturing centers. And here's the critical point. Many of these installations show energy signatures consistent with railgun technology. Strategic AI Beta materialized, alongside Gamma, its avatar taking the form of interlocking rings. Cross-referencing electromagnetic emissions from Sol system over the past 30 years reveals a pattern of regular high-energy discharges. We initially classified these as natural phenomena, solar flares, or magnetic storms. But they weren't natural, were they? Kane asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. Negative. The patterns are too regular, too controlled. The humans have been conducting regular live-fire exercises with railgun weapons for decades. Conservative estimates suggest thousands of test firings, possibly tens of thousands. The Implications sent a chill through the chamber. While the galaxy had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers, they had been conducting the most extensive weapons testing program in recorded history. Commander Rex leaned forward, his predatory instincts engaged. "What about their fleet strength? How many ships are we dealing with?" Admiral Zar's expression grew grimmer. "Based on gravitational disturbances and energy signatures, we estimate approximately 1,200 vessels of various classifications. However, these classifications may be meaningless by our standards." "Why?" "Because every human ship appears to be armed with railgun systems. Their cargo vessels, exploration ships, even civilian transports show the energy patterns consistent. With magnetic acceleration weapons. They haven't built a space fleet with some warships. They've built a space fleet where every ship is a potential warship." Dr. Mila's form pulsed with rapid calculations. "I've been modeling the energy requirements for their demonstrated weapons. A ship capable of accelerating projectiles to 12% of light speed would require massive power generation and storage systems. The fact that they describe this as standard equipment suggests..." "Suggests what?" Kane prompted. "Suggests their industrial capacity is far beyond what we initially estimated. Building thousands of ships with railgun systems requires manufacturing capabilities that rival the major galactic powers." Strategic AI Gamma's avatar shifted to display tactical projections. "There is another consideration. Human railgun technology appears to be scalable. If they can build shipboard systems capable of 12% light speed, ground-based installations with larger power supplies could theoretically achieve higher velocities." "How much higher?" asked Kane. "Unknown, but preliminary calculations suggest 20 to 25% of light speed might be achievable with planetary power sources." The silence that followed was broken by the arrival of an urgent message from the Galactic Science Consortium. Dr. Wells of the Helix species appeared via quantum communication, his crystalline form resonating with mathematical distress. "Admirals, we've completed our analysis of human space. I'm afraid our earlier estimates were conservative." "How conservative?" Kane asked. "The asteroid belt in Sol's system is largely gone, not destroyed, systematically disassembled and converted into raw materials. The energy expenditure required for such an operation would be enormous unless they used kinetic impactors." "For mining operations," Admiral Zar finished grimly. "The same weapons they demonstrated for us." "Correct. Which means they've been running an industrial operation disguised as weapons testing, or a weapons program disguised as mining. Either way, they've had decades to perfect their technology." High Admiral Kane stood slowly, her augmented features showing the strain of processing this information. "Ladies, gentlemen, and artificial entities, we appear to be facing an unprecedented situation. We have made contact with a species that has spent 30 years perfecting weapons that make our most advanced military systems look like primitive clubs." She activated the main tactical display, showing estimated human capabilities alongside standard galactic military assets. The comparison was sobering. A single human heavy cruiser could theoretically engage and destroy an entire battle fleet. From beyond sensor range, their weapons are undetectable in flight, impossible to intercept, and carry enough kinetic energy to devastate planetary installations. Commander Rex's scales had shifted to the pale gray his species displayed when contemplating natural disasters. "What are our options?" "Limited," Kane replied honestly. "Our defensive systems are designed to counter energy weapons, exotic matter, and conventional kinetic projectiles. Nothing in our military doctrine accounts for relativistic kinetic weapons." Strategic AI Beta's rings rotated rapidly as it processed tactical scenarios, recommendations, immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership. Secondary recommendation, emergency defense protocols for all major installations. Tertiary recommendation, research into countermeasures for relativistic kinetic weapons. And if they prove hostile? Rex asked. The AIs exchanged what might have been meaningful looks between geometric shapes. Unknown. Our tactical models cannot accurately predict outcomes against weapons systems this far outside established parameters. High Admiral Kane turned to address the full assembly. We are facing a paradigm shift, people. For the first time in galactic history, we have encountered a species whose first contact technology represents a fundamental threat to established civilization. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle over the room. The humans claim peaceful intent, and their behavior supports this claim. But they have also demonstrated the capability to destroy any target in the galaxy with weapons that cannot be stopped or intercepted. This changes everything. The meeting concluded with the formation of the Emergency Human Response Committee, tasked with developing diplomatic, military, and scientific responses to humanity's unexpected capabilities. As delegates departed to brief their respective governments, one thing was clear. The galaxy would never look at the newcomers from Sol System the same way again. In the depths of space, human ships continued their routine operations, their crews unaware that their simple demonstration had triggered the largest military reassessment in galactic history. They went about their duties with calm professionalism, secure in the knowledge that they were well prepared for anything the universe might throw at them. After all, they had very good aim. News traveled fast in the galaxy, but fear traveled faster. Within hours of the Coalition High Command briefing, encrypted messages were racing across star systems at faster-than-light speeds. The content was always similar and always terrifying. The humans were not what they appeared to be. On the crystal world of Nexus Prime, Dr. Mila stood before the Grand Mathematics Council, her crystalline form resonating with equations that made reality shimmer. Around her, the assembled mathematicians, beings who could calculate the stress patterns in a neutron star just by looking at it, listened with growing unease. The human projectile achieved 12% of light speed, she reported, her voice carrying harmonics of deep concern. At that velocity, kinetic energy approaches the levels typically associated with exotic matter weapons. But there was no exotic matter, just tungsten accelerated through magnetic fields. Elder Crystal Thex, ancient beyond measure and wise in the mathematics of war, pulsed with dim light. You are certain of these calculations? The sensor data has been verified by 17 independent analysis systems. The energy release was equivalent to 43.7 megatons of antimatter annihilation, achieved with approximately 3 tons of common metal and electrical power. The council chamber fell silent except for the soft harmonics of mathematical contemplation. Finally, Elder Thex spoke again. What are the theoretical upper limits of such technology? Dr. Mila's form flickered rapidly as she accessed computational networks across 3 star systems. Given sufficient power generation, projectiles could theoretically reach 20 to 30% of light speed. At those velocities, she paused, her calculations creating visible distortions in the air. At those velocities, a single projectile could crack continental plates. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in throne rooms, hive minds, and collective consciousness networks. In the war chambers of the Talon Empire, General Crix paced before his assembled pack leaders, his scales displaying patterns of aggressive unease. The Talon were proud warriors who had fought their way to galactic prominence through superior tactics and unbreakable courage. They were not accustomed to feeling afraid. These humans showed us a mining tool, Crix snarled, his claws scraping, against the metal floor. A mining tool that could vaporize our finest dreadnought in a single shot. Pack leader Vorth, veteran of a dozen interspecies conflicts, studied the holographic display showing the human demonstration. How is this possible? Our intelligence reports described them as primitives, chemical rockets, explosive projectiles, barely capable of interstellar flight. Our intelligence was wrong. Crix activated a tactical display showing human ship designs. Look at their construction philosophy. Every structural element, every power conduit, every design choice is built around that magnetic acceleration system. This isn't experimental technology bolted onto existing ships. Their entire naval architecture is designed for kinetic warfare. Pack leader. Drex leaned forward, his predatory instincts analyzing the data. What kind of species builds their entire space fleet around a single weapon concept? A species that's been planning to kill things in space for a very long time, Crix replied grimly. Meanwhile, in the energy matrix networks of the Drift Collective, Dr. Neela's gaseous form interfaced directly with the galaxy's most sophisticated information systems. The Drift, as energy beings, were naturally sensitive to electromagnetic patterns across vast distances. Now, as they reviewed decades of background radiation data, a disturbing picture emerged. "We've been detecting the signatures for 30 years, she reported to the emergency session of the Drift Council. High-intensity magnetic pulses from Sol system, occurring with increasing frequency and precision. We classified them as natural, stellar phenomena. But they weren't natural, observed Elder Flux, his form crackling with electromagnetic distress. No, the patterns are too regular, too controlled. The humans have been conducting live fire exercises with railgun weapons for decades. Thousands of shots, each one refining their technology and training their crews. The implications were staggering. While the galaxy had dismissed humanity as backward newcomers, they had been secretly perfecting the most devastatingly simple weapons anyone had ever conceived. But it was the final piece of intelligence that truly sent chills through every military command in the galaxy. It came from a routine astrogation survey conducted by the Helix Science Consortium, the kind of basic stellar mapping that every spacefaring civilization conducted as a matter of course. Dr. Wells materialized in emergency session chambers, across 36 worlds simultaneously, his crystalline form resonating with mathematical precision and growing alarm. "We have completed detailed mapping of Sol system," he announced to the assembled representatives. "The results require immediate attention from all galactic powers." The holographic display that materialized showed Sol system as it existed today. Where standard astronomy textbooks showed a typical stellar arrangement with planets, asteroids, and debris, the reality was far more complex. The asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets has been systematically disassembled, Wells continued. Converted into artificial installations, manufacturing platforms, and orbital structures. The energy expenditure required for such an operation would be enormous under normal circumstances. But not if they used railgun technology for mining operations, concluded Admiral Czar, his cybernetic implants flickering with tactical calculations. Precisely. They've been strip mining their entire system using the same weapons they demonstrated for warfare. This suggests an industrial capacity far beyond our initial estimates. The true scope of human capabilities was becoming clear, and it was terrifying. They hadn't just developed railgun weapons. They had built their entire space-based civilization around perfecting the art of accelerating matter to significant fractions of light speed. In the depths of space, on the neutral station Concordia, representatives from the galaxy's major powers met in absolute secrecy. The gathering would have been unthinkable just days earlier, traditional enemies sitting at the same table united by a common concern. Council Director Vex of the ethereal species opened the session with words that would have been impossible to imagine before human contact. "We are here to discuss the human threat." The word threat hung in the chamber like a physical presence. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a newly contacted species was being discussed not as potential members or trading partners, but as an existential danger to established civilization. "Our combined intelligence services have compiled preliminary assessments of human technological capabilities," Admiral Czar reported. "The results are unprecedented. The holographic display showed Sol's system in all its transformed glory. Thousands of artificial installations connected by transport networks that moved materials at relativistic speeds. Manufacturing centers that could produce railgun-equipped vessels by the dozen. And most disturbing of all, what appeared to be dedicated military installations whose purpose could only be guessed at. They're using their weapon technology for routine cargo transport, observed Dr. Neela, her gaseous form pulsing with electromagnetic distress. They're accelerating shipping containers to relativistic speeds as normal commerce. The implications were clear to everyone in the chamber. A species that used civilization-ending weapons for package delivery would view militarizing such systems as trivial. "What about their actual military capabilities?" asked General Crix, his scales displaying the colors of professional concern. Admiral Zar's expression grew grimmer. "Based on energy signatures and gravitational readings, we estimate 1,200 vessels of various classifications. But these classifications may be meaningless by our standards." Why? Because human ships don't follow standard design paradigms. What we might classify as a light cruiser could potentially carry firepower equivalent to our heaviest dreadnoughts. They've built their entire fleet around their weapon systems rather than traditional space warfare doctrine. Strategic AI Omega materialized above the conference table, its geometric form shifting with calculated unease. Long-range sensor analysis suggests some human vessels are essentially single massive railgun systems with minimal life support attached. These ships could theoretically engage targets across interstellar distances. The phrase interstellar range sent a chill through the chamber. The concept of weapons that could strike across star systems was so far outside established military doctrine that most languages lacked terms for it. Commander Thex of the Void Hunters, a species known for their mastery of stealth warfare, leaned forward with predatory interest. "What are their defensive capabilities?" "Unknown, but likely irrelevant," Omega replied. "At the velocities they can achieve, defense becomes less important than the ability to strike first. A ship that can accelerate projectiles to 20% of light speed doesn't need heavy armor. It needs to ensure its targets never get the chance to shoot back." Council Director Vex raised an appendage for silence. "What are our options, if they prove hostile?" The question was answered by a moment of absolute quiet that seemed to stretch on forever. Finally, Strategic AI Gamma materialized alongside Omega, its form flickering with computational stress. Conventional military analysis suggests limited defensive options. Point defense systems cannot engage targets moving at relativistic velocities. Energy shields would be overwhelmed by the kinetic energy transfer. Armor is irrelevant at these impact speeds. "What about preemptive strikes?" suggested General Crix, his warrior instincts seeking any viable option. "Inadvisable," Gamma responded immediately. "Human installations in Sol's system appear designed for mutual defense. Any attack would likely trigger coordinated retaliation from multiple platforms simultaneously. Additionally, their demonstrated precision suggests they could selectively target military assets while avoiding civilian casualties, or maximize casualties if they chose." The final assessment came from Dr. Wells, his crystalline form resonating with mathematical certainty and something approaching despair. "Our analysis of human technological development suggests they began working on railgun weapons approximately 80 years ago. This means they started developing planet-killing weapons before they achieved faster-than-light travel, before they knew other intelligent species existed." The silence that followed was broken by Commander Thex's whispered observation. "What kind of species develops civilization-ending weapons while still confined to their home system?" Dr. Neela provided the answer, her electromagnetic form flickering with species memory of ancient conflicts. "A species that spent millions of years learning to kill each other with thrown projectiles. They didn't develop railguns as weapons of war. They developed them as the natural evolution of their fundamental survival strategy. The meeting concluded with a series of recommendations that would have been unthinkable at its beginning: emergency defense protocols for all major installations, suspension of military exercises near human space, and most significantly, immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership, not as the galactic community welcoming new members, but as established powers desperately seeking to avoid a war they couldn't win. As representatives departed Concordia, each carried the same unspoken knowledge. The galaxy had just discovered that its newest members might also be its most dangerous. Humanity had spent decades perfecting the art of throwing rocks fast enough to shatter worlds, and they had done it not out of malice or imperial ambition, but because it seemed like the logical thing to do. In the depths of space, human crews continued their routine operations, unaware that their species had become the subject of the largest intelligence-gathering operation in galactic history. They went about their duties with calm professionalism, secure in the knowledge that they were well prepared for anything the universe might have in store. After all, preparation was just good sense. Fear was a mathematical concept to the Helix. They could calculate its probability curves, model its spread through populations, and predict its effects on decision-making processes. But experiencing it firsthand was something entirely different. Dr. Wells stood in the primary computation chamber of the Helix homeworld, his crystalline form resonating with equations that should have been impossible. Around him, the greatest mathematical minds in the galaxy worked frantically to solve a problem that defied their most advanced theoretical frameworks. How do you defend against weapons that move faster than your ability to detect them? The projectile travel time at 12% light speed across standard engagement ranges would be approximately 0.03 seconds, he reported to the assembled council. Our fastest point defense systems require 0.2 seconds minimum response time. Elder, Thex pulsed with dim mathematical distress. And at higher velocities? At 20% light speed, which appears to be within human capability, response time becomes irrelevant. The projectile would impact before our sensors could even register its presence. The implications were staggering. For millennia, galactic warfare had been based on the principle that faster sensors and quicker reactions provided defensive advantages. The humans had simply accelerated their weapons beyond the point where reaction time mattered. Across the galaxy, similar calculations were being performed with identical results. On the war world of Talon Prime, the Empire's greatest military, strategists gathered in the Hall of Victory, a vast chamber lined with the banners of conquered worlds. For the first time in their history, the Talon faced an enemy they couldn't simply outfight through superior aggression. General Crix stood before a holographic display showing human ship movements near Sol system. The data was 3 days old, the best intelligence they could gather from that distance. But it painted a troubling picture. They're conducting routine patrol operations, he reported to the assembled war leaders. 12 ships maintaining standard defensive formations around their primary installations. Only 12 ships? Pack Leader Vorth's scales displayed confident patterns. Our battle fleets could overwhelm such a small force. Could they? Crix activated a tactical simulation. Computer, model engagement between standard Talon battle fleet and 12 human vessels equipped with railgun systems. The holographic display filled with tactical projections. Red dots representing Talon ships moved in aggressive formations toward blue dots representing human vessels. But as the simulation ran, something unprecedented happened. The human ships began firing from distances that shouldn't have been possible. First human salvo at range, 400,000 kilometers, the computer announced in its emotionless voice. Talon fleet still approaching, impact in 3.7 seconds. The simulation showed Talon ships exploding before they could even detect the incoming projectiles. Within 30 seconds of virtual combat, the entire battle fleet was destroyed without landing a single hit on the human vessels. "Run it again," Pack Leader Vorth demanded, his scales now displaying less confident colors. "Increase fleet size to maximum assault strength." The second simulation showed the same result, only faster. More Talon ships simply meant more targets for the humans to destroy at impossible ranges. The issue isn't numbers, Crix explained grimly. It's physics. They can kill us from distances where we can't even see them, using weapons we can't intercept or avoid. Meanwhile, in the energy matrix networks of the Drift Collective, Dr. Neela interfaced with quantum computation systems that processed information at near-light speeds. Even with such advanced processing power, the tactical models kept producing the same impossible results. "I've run 47,000 combat scenarios," she reported to the emergency council session. Human victory probability ranges from 94 to 99.8% across all engagement types. "What about our plasma storm weapons?" asked Elder Flux, his gaseous form crackling with desperate hope. "Surely energy-based attacks could overwhelm their defenses?" "Irrelevant. They can destroy our vessels before we reach effective range for plasma weapons. The few scenarios where we achieve tactical success require us to somehow survive the initial railgun bombardment, which our models suggest is impossible." The Drift had fought wars across the galaxy for millions of years. They had faced energy beings, matter manipulators, and reality-bending entities. But they had never encountered an enemy whose weapons simply ignored the fundamental assumptions of space warfare. On Nexus Prime, the Coalition's most advanced artificial intelligences worked around the clock, processing tactical data with computational power that exceeded most biological civilizations' entire technological output. The results were consistent and terrifying. Strategic AI Gamma materialized in the secure briefing chamber, its geometric form flickering with what could only be described as digital anxiety. Analysis complete. Human railgun technology represents a paradigm shift equivalent to the introduction of nuclear weapons in pre-space civilizations. High Admiral Kane leaned forward, her augmented features showing the strain of sleepless nights spent reviewing intelligence reports. "Explain the comparison." "Nuclear weapons rendered previous. Military doctrines obsolete by introducing destruction levels that exceeded defensive capabilities. Human railgun weapons achieve similar effects through pure kinetic energy, but with several strategic advantages. They require no exotic materials, produce minimal energy signatures during flight, and cannot be intercepted by conventional means." "What about our experimental defense systems?" asked Admiral Czar. "Temporal shields, reality anchors, quantum deflection fields?" Gamma's avatar shifted through several geometric configurations before responding. Temporal shields require 0.1 seconds activation time, insufficient against relativistic projectiles. Reality anchors are designed to counter exotic matter weapons and would be overwhelmed by pure kinetic energy. Quantum deflection fields. The AI paused. Quantum deflection fields might reduce impact energy by 12 to 15%. The projectile would still retain sufficient kinetic force to destroy any known defensive installation. The silence that followed was broken by the arrival of an urgent message from the Galactic Science Consortium. Dr. Wells appeared via quantum projection, his crystalline form resonating with mathematical certainty and something approaching despair. "We have completed analysis of human industrial capacity based on observable construction in Sol system," he announced. "The results require immediate attention from all military commands." The holographic display showed Sol system in unprecedented detail. What had once been a simple star system with planets and asteroids was now a complex industrial network that defied easy classification. They have converted approximately 67% of their asteroid belt into manufactured goods and orbital installations, Wells continued. The construction rate suggests they can produce railgun-equipped vessels at a pace that exceeds our combined galactic shipbuilding capacity. "How is that possible?" Kane demanded. "They're using their railgun technology for construction as well as warfare. High-velocity material transport, precision asteroid shaping, orbital assembly at speeds we previously thought impossible." They've built an entire industrial civilization around accelerating matter to relativistic speeds. Admiral Zar's cybernetic implants flickered as he processed the implications. They're not just building warships. They're building the infrastructure to build warships faster than anyone else in the galaxy. Strategic AI Beta materialized alongside Gamma, its geometric form rotating rapidly. There is another consideration. Human development patterns suggest continuous technological improvement. If their current weapons achieve 12 to 15% of light speed, next-generation systems might reach 20 to 25%. And beyond that? Kane asked. 30% of light speed appears to be theoretically achievable with sufficient power generation. At those velocities, kinetic weapons would begin to approach the destructive efficiency of antimatter warheads, while remaining essentially undetectable. The final piece of intelligence came from an unexpected source. Commander Thex of the Void Hunters had spent days analyzing human communication patterns, looking for any weakness in their operational security. What she found was more disturbing than any weapons system. Their crews are trained to operational standards that exceed our elite military units, she reported via secure transmission. Communication intercepts suggest they conduct live fire, exercises with railgun weapons as routine training, not annually or monthly, weekly. The implications hit every military leader simultaneously. The humans weren't just equipped with devastating weapons. They were trained to use them with the casual competence of species that had been fighting with such systems for decades. How many trained crews do they have? Kane asked. Based on communication traffic analysis, every human vessel appears to be fully staffed with crews experienced in railgun operations. Conservative estimates suggest 12 to 15,000 trained personnel across their fleet. 15,000 people who could operate weapons that made galactic dreadnoughts look like children's toys. High Admiral Kane stood slowly, her augmented features reflecting the weight of command decisions that would affect the entire galaxy. Ladies, gentlemen, and artificial entities, we are facing an unprecedented strategic situation. For the first time in recorded galactic history, we have encountered a species whose standard military technology represents an existential threat to every other civilization. She activated the main tactical display, showing projected human capabilities alongside the combined military assets of all galactic powers. The comparison was sobering beyond words. A single human heavy cruiser operating at maximum range could theoretically engage and destroy our largest battle fleets before they could respond. Their weapons are undetectable in flight, impossible to intercept, and carry sufficient kinetic energy to devastate planetary installations. What are our options? Asked General Crix via quantum communication from Talon Prime, his voice carrying none of its usual aggressive confidence. Limited, Kane replied honestly. Our military doctrine assumes enemies who fight according to established principles of space warfare. The humans have developed weapons that make those principles irrelevant. Strategic AI Gamma's avatar shifted to display probability matrices. Recommendations: immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership to establish peaceful relations. Secondary recommendation: emergency research into countermeasures for relativistic kinetic weapons. Tertiary recommendation: preparation of evacuation protocols for all major population centers. Evacuation protocols. The question came from several sources simultaneously. If diplomatic contact fails and hostilities commence, our tactical models suggest human forces could target and destroy any installation in the galaxy within days of combat initiation. Evacuation to uninhabited systems might preserve civilian populations. The meeting concluded with the formation of the Emergency Human Response Task Force, composed of the galaxy's finest military minds, most advanced artificial intelligences, and most desperate diplomatic corps. Their mission was simple in concept, but potentially impossible in execution. Find a way to coexist with a species that had accidentally developed the most effective weapons in galactic history. As delegates departed to brief their respective governments, emergency protocols activated across dozens of star systems. Military fleets moved to defensive positions around critical installations. Scientific research programs shifted focus to developing countermeasures for weapons that shouldn't exist. Diplomatic services prepared for the most important negotiations in galactic history. And in the depths of space, human ships continued their routine patrols, their crews unaware that their species had become the subject of the largest military assessment in recorded history. They went about their duties with practiced efficiency, secure in the knowledge that they were well prepared for any situation the universe might present. After all, good preparation was just common sense, and humans had always been very good at preparing for trouble. The second meeting between humanity and the Galactic Council took place 6 months after the first, but everything had changed. Gone were the casual dismissals and condescending laughter. In their place sat the careful attention of beings who had spent months calculating exactly how many tungsten rods it would take to reduce their homeworlds to cooling slag. The venue had changed as well. Instead of the Grand Council chambers on Nexus Station, the delegates now met aboard the UES Constitution, humanity's newest diplomatic vessel, in neutral space between Sol System and the nearest inhabited worlds. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. The galaxy's representatives were coming to the humans rather than the other way around. Admiral Tom Bradley had been promoted twice since their last meeting, a reflection of humanity's rapidly changing status in galactic affairs. He stood in the Constitution's main conference room, facing an audience that included every major power in known space. The casual confidence that had unnerved the galaxy months earlier remained unchanged. "Thank you all for accepting our invitation," Bradley began, his tone carrying the same matter-of-fact professionalism that had become his trademark. "We understand that recent developments have raised questions about our capabilities and intentions. We're here to address those concerns directly." Council Director Vex leaned forward with the fluid grace of her species, but the movement was careful, measured. "Admiral Bradley, our intelligence services have conducted extensive analysis of your technological capabilities since our last meeting. We must ask directly, what are humanity's strategic goals in galactic affairs?" "Simple," Bradley replied immediately. "We want to trade, learn, and make friends. We've been alone in the universe for our entire history, so the opportunity to join a galactic community is genuinely exciting for our species." The words were reassuring, but they were spoken by a man standing in the command center of a ship that could theoretically sterilize every capital world in the galaxy without leaving hyperspace. General Crix, his scales displaying the muted colors of enforced diplomacy, spoke carefully. "Admiral, our analysis suggests your fleet could engage targets across interstellar distances. This represents a fundamental shift in galactic strategic balance." "That's true," Bradley acknowledged without hesitation, "though we view our long-range capabilities primarily as defensive measures. It's much easier to maintain peace when potential aggressors know they can't hide behind distance or superior numbers." Dr. Mila's crystalline form flickered with carefully controlled resonance patterns. "Your species developed these weapons before achieving faster-than-light travel, before you knew other civilizations existed. Our mathematical models suggest this is unprecedented in galactic history." Bradley considered the observation thoughtfully. "I suppose it comes from our historical experience. On Earth, conflicts were usually won by whoever could project force more effectively across greater distances. When we started expanding into space, we naturally assumed that principle would continue to apply on larger scales. But the destructive potential," Dr. Wells interjected, his harmonics carrying undertones of mathematical distress. "Your weapons represent energy releases that most species never achieve even after millennia of technological development." "Well," Bradley said with the tone of someone explaining basic physics, "space is a very big place. If you're going to throw something at a target millions of kilometers away, you need to throw it hard enough that it'll still be dangerous when it arrives. Otherwise, what's the point of the exercise? The casual logic of the statement sent chills through the assembled delegates. Humanity had developed civilization-ending weapons not through malice or imperial ambition, but because it seemed like obvious engineering sense. Admiral Czar's cybernetic implants flickered as he accessed tactical databases. Your industrial capacity in Sol systems suggests you can produce railgun-equipped vessels at unprecedented rates. What are your fleet expansion plans? We're building ships as fast as our shipyards can manage, Bradley replied cheerfully. Exploration. Vessels for mapping new star systems. Cargo ships for interstellar trade. Passenger liners for civilian transport, scientific research platforms for studying galactic phenomena. Every ship needs defensive systems, of course. The phrase defensive systems was becoming humanity's preferred euphemism for weapons that could crack continental plates. Everyone in the room understood the implication. Commander Thex broke the careful diplomatic silence. What do you want from us? Trade, primarily, Bradley said. We're very interested in your faster-than-light communication technology. It would revolutionize our logistics networks. Helix mathematical modeling systems could help us optimize our manufacturing processes. Drift energy manipulation techniques might improve our power generation efficiency, and we'd love to learn more about ethereal artistic traditions. In exchange for? Bradley gestured to a holographic display showing human space. We have the most efficient resource extraction and manufacturing capabilities in the galaxy. We can provide raw materials, finished goods, and engineering services at scales nobody else can match. We're also happy to offer transit security services. The phrase transit security services hung in the air like a diplomatic landmine. Everyone present understood it meant humanity was offering to protect galactic shipping lanes with weapons that could vaporize pirate fleets from several star systems away. Council Director Vex spoke with exquisite care. And if conflicts arise? If there are disagreements between humanity and other species, we prefer diplomatic solutions, Bradley said reasonably. But we also believe in proportional response. Someone attacks our civilian shipping, we target their military assets. Someone attacks our colonies, we target their industrial infrastructure. Someone attacks Earth. He shrugged with apparent casualness. Well, Earth is where we keep all our important stuff, and our families. I'm sure you understand. The threat was delivered with the same conversational tone Bradley might use to discuss weather patterns, which somehow made it infinitely more effective than any dramatic declaration of war. Strategic AI Omega materialized above the conference table, its geometric form flickering with digital uncertainty. Admiral Bradley, what are humanity's long-term technological development goals? Continuous improvement, Bradley replied without hesitation. Our engineering teams are currently working on next-generation railgun systems that should achieve 30% of light speed. Our physicists think 40% might be possible within the next decade or two. 40% of light speed. The number triggered automatic threat assessment protocols in every artificial intelligence present. At those velocities, kinetic weapons would approach the destructive efficiency of antimatter warheads while remaining essentially undetectable until impact. Dr. Neela's gaseous form pulsed with electromagnetic concern. Are you planning to develop other weapon systems? Energy weapons? Exotic matter manipulation? Reality-altering technologies? Why would we? Bradley asked with genuine curiosity. Railgun technology already does everything we need. It's simple, reliable, scalable, and effective against any target. Plus, it has excellent civilian applications. Cargo transport, mining operations, construction projects, terraforming work. Very versatile technology. The casual dismissal of advanced weapons research was somehow more unsettling than aggressive military expansion would have been. Humanity wasn't trying to build better weapons. They had already built perfect weapons and saw no reason to complicate things. High Admiral Kane, representing the Coalition's Unified Military Command, leaned forward. "Admiral, our strategic analyses suggest a single human heavy cruiser could engage entire battle fleets from beyond sensor range. How do you view galactic military balance?" "I think it's quite stable," Bradley replied. "Nobody wants to fight wars that destroy everything they're fighting over. Much better to solve problems through negotiation and mutual benefit. Of course, successful negotiation requires all parties to understand the costs of failure." The statement was delivered with Bradley's characteristic calm professionalism, but its meaning was crystal clear. Humanity was prepared to destroy anyone who threatened them, but they'd rather not have to. The meeting concluded with the signing of the Sol Accords, humanity's formal entry into galactic civilization. The terms were unlike any previous membership agreement in galactic history. Humanity received full trading rights, unrestricted territorial sovereignty, and, most significantly, a permanent Security Council seat with veto power over any military actions within 100 light-years of Sol system. In exchange, humanity agreed to abide by standard galactic commercial law, provide advance notice of military exercises involving projectiles faster than 10% of light speed, and maintain diplomatic missions on all major worlds. As the delegates prepared to depart, Admiral Bradley made one final statement that would be quoted in diplomatic and military academies for generations to come. "I want to be absolutely clear about humanity's position in galactic affairs. We don't seek to dominate other species or impose our values on alien civilizations. We just want to explore the universe, make new friends, and build interesting things. But we've learned from our history that the best way to ensure peace is to be prepared for war." He paused, letting his words settle over the assembly. "So, we'll keep building our ships, training our crews, and improving our technology. Not because we want to use them against our neighbors, but because we want to make sure we never have to. The galaxy is a big place with lots of room for everyone. As long as everyone remembers that, we'll all get along just fine." The galaxy had gained its newest member, and with it, a new understanding of the delicate balance between civilization and survival. Humanity had proven that sometimes the most terrifying species were not those driven by aggression or conquest, but those who simply prepared for any eventuality with methodical thoroughness. Within a year of the Sol Accords, interstellar trade routes reported the lowest piracy rates in recorded history. Shipping companies began specifically requesting human escort services, paying premium rates for the peace of mind that came with knowing their cargo was protected by vessels that could eliminate threats from interstellar distances. Construction began on humanity's next generation of vessels, their improved railgun systems humming with the promise of even greater velocities and the quiet confidence of a species that had learned to reach across the void and touch their problems with the fundamental forces of physics. The galaxy would never be quite the same, but perhaps most beings agreed that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, it had been a very long time since the major powers had felt genuinely motivated to solve their problems through diplomacy, rather than warfare. Funny how a species that could throw rocks at 30% of light speed had that effect on people.